Progressive Taxation Explained. In this video, I'm going to talk about progressive taxation and explain why it is driving the end of democracy. Progressive, the word sounds so decent, so correct, so just, so positive, so fair, so progressive. How could anyone object? Which is why the term is so popular among the liberal left. Socialists love to go on about progressive values because it sounds like they're talking about progress. They don't realize that with progress, things don't get better, they just get different. I submit that more often than not, so-called progressive values are highly regressive. Progressive taxation is a case in point. To high net worth individuals, progressive taxation simply means forcing them to pay more. Not just proportionally more, but exponentially more. And the sensible among them run away. The situation is described in Flight of the Golden Geese, the book I wrote with my good friend David Lesperance. In the hands of greedy politicians, particularly when under extreme fiscal pressure, progressive taxation inevitably leads to a drop in tax revenue, leading to unstable government. Now, to justify this rather bald statement, I will use a story, a metaphor of 10 friends from various socio-economic groupings who regularly meet up in a bar. Yes, it's an old chestnut, but it is well worth repeating here because it makes a valid point. I lifted the story from the internet. Supposedly it was first posted by Dr. David Camershon, professor of economics at the University of Georgia. However, the good professor actually denies authorship. To quote him, contrary to internet folklore, Dr. Camershon is not the author of Tax Cuts, a simple lesson in economics, or Barstool economics, or anything similar to that. Additionally, he does not know who wrote it, and he has no opinion on its merits. Now, since I too have failed to track down the original author, therefore he or she must remain anonymous, and consequently I feel free to quote the story with impunity. So, let me recount the story. Every Friday night, 10 friends would go out for a beer. The total bill would come to $100. The men paid their bill progressively, that is, in the same way we pay taxes. The final tally went something like this. The first 4 men, the poorest among them, would pay nothing. The fifth would pay $1, the sixth $3, the seventh $7, the eighth would pay $12, the ninth $18, and the 10th man, the richest, would pay $59. Every Friday, the 10 men drank in the bar and everyone seemed happy with the arrangement, until one fateful day when the bar owner really complicated matters. He came in and said, "Since you are all such good customers, for tonight I'm going to reduce the cost of your beer by $20. For one night only, the drinks will cost you just $80. The group decided that the first 4 men would still drink for free, but what about the other 6, the ones who actually paid? How would they divide the $20 windfall so that everyone would get his fair share? Dividing the $20 equally between the 6, the ones who paid up, would mean that they would each save $3.33. However, this would mean that both the 5th and 6th men would each end up actually being paid to drink beer. So the bar owner suggested that, to be fair, as before, they should pay the new bill progressively, which meant reducing each man's bill roughly in proportion to the amount he paid. After a quick calculation, the bar owner suggested that the fifth man, like the first four, would now pay nothing, a saving to him of 100%. The sixth would now pay $2 instead of three, a saving of 33%. The seventh would pay $5 instead of seven, a saving of 28%. The eighth would pay $9 instead of 12, a saving of 25%. The ninth would pay $14 instead of 18, a saving of 22%. And the 10th would pay $49 instead of 59, a whopping $10 saving of 16%. Each of the latter six was better off than before, and the first four continued to drink for free. However, at the end of the evening, outside the bar, the men began to compare their savings. "I only got $1 out of the 20, declared the sixth man. He pointed to the 10th man, but he got $10 back. "Yeah, that's right," exclaimed the fifth man. "I also only saved $1. It's unfair that he got 10 times more than I did." The fifth man completely ignored the fact that originally number 10 was paying 59 times as much as him for the beer. "That's true," shouted the seventh man. "Why should he get $10 back when I only got two? The wealthy get all the breaks." "Wait a minute," yelled the first four in unison. "We didn't get anything at all. The system exploits the poor." Incensed, the 9 men surrounded the 10th, knocked him to the ground, and beat him up and took the money. The next Friday, the 10th man, who incidentally had made the smallest percentage saving, naturally didn't show up for the drinks. So the 9 sat down and had their beers without him. Good riddance. That smug rich bastard was never really one of us. But when it came time to pay the bill, they were all in for a shock. Altogether, they had just enough money to pay for around half of the bill. And that, boys and girls, is how progressive tax system works. The people who pay the highest taxes get the most benefits from a tax reduction, although they also pay the most of any increase. Tax them too much with that increase, attack them for being wealthy, and they will choose not to show up anymore. In fact, they may start drinking overseas, where the atmosphere is somewhat friendlier and far more welcoming. For those who understand this story, no explanation is needed. For those who do not understand, no explanation is possible. And let's link this back to democracy. Until recently, democracy only worked because it wasn't really democracy. The democratic process had been hijacked by those with the most influence, such as with money and connections. This non-democratic form of democracy could be maintained in an unstable equilibrium. It worked. However, the moment politicians give way to the will of the mob and embarked on actually listening to the loudest majority and acting on that and on their wishes, all is lost. For then democracy becomes 9 wolves and a lamb voting on what's for lunch. John Adams, the second president of the USA, was quite clear. Remember, democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself. There never was a democracy yet that did not commit suicide. Surely the population at large, or at the very least their representative politicians, understand the moral of this story. demonizing the wealthy or raising the taxes excessively beyond a critical level will precipitate a backlash among the rich, which consequently will lead to a suicidal drop in tax revenue. Do they understand? No, they don't. Hence, politicians are stuck between a rock, the markets, and a hard place, the voters. COVID 19 has made it even worse. The good times are well and truly over, and the financial trouble facing all Western economies means that an even worse austerity is staring them all in the face. Be sure they won't share out the pain equitably. They will be progressive with the misery. You can expect to see that the word liberally scattered throughout political speeches as the moral justification for robbing the rich, who, luckily for democratic politicians, form only a tiny minority of voters. Losing their votes will not adversely affect the populist politicians' election chances. In fact, soaking the rich is likely to get them more votes from the general population. However, this small minority, the golden geese, will not sit passively by and allow themselves to be plucked. Unluckily for the populist politicians, the rich can, and they will, fly away. Then there won't be enough money left in the coffers to placate the demanding voters. Anarchy and then tyranny beckon, and as John Adams concluded, democracy will have committed suicide. Thank you.